India-Pakistan border on issues like air pollution, water usage, and sustainable agriculture.
The Scale Up program is an accelerator of global governance solutions. We aim to and ultimately help them amplify their impact and their reach.
Being recognised for the work we were trying to do to make change globally out of Africa and out of the global south was part of what...
And I think the secret to kind of growing and scaling impact is collaboration.
To both project leaders and to experts, we ask them, please join us and get involved with the Scale Up program.
Thank you. Welcome everyone. It's my pleasure to host a spotlight discussion with two eminent figures in global climate policy. Isabella Teixeira, with the co-chair of the International Resource Panel and a former Minister of Environment for Brazil, and Yuba Sokona, former vice chair of the IPCC and a founder of the African Institute for Sustainable Energy and System Analysis. You both bring extensive insight into sustainable development and climate action. And of course, this discussion occurs a week after a major shift happened. The election of Donald Trump as the new US president, who has been outspoken about his skepticism of climate change. The policies of the future US administration will likely affect economic, technological, trade, strategic balances. So my first question would be to you, Yuba Sokona. How might this political change affect the global climate discussion? What could be the consequences for Africa? What could we do to maintain this climate policy action in this context?
Thank you. As we already know, climate discussion is already very complex and complicated. It gets complex and complicated if you consider the current situation in which we are. Different consequences, and we have seen during the past year the extreme weather event in different parts of the world. I'm coming from the Sahel. The same year we have seen extreme weather in terms of heat wave and in terms of flooding. And with the election in the US, it might be possible that Europe drop again on the Paris Agreement, and that have a huge implication, particularly if we were expecting that Baku will be a COP of finance, and then finance is a topical issue between North and South. And with the finance, it's very difficult and often impossible, and then to mobilize developing countries, particularly the poor countries, and then that are paying the high price for the climate. And then in that perspective, we have no idea if there will be a kind of serenity in the discussion in Baku.
Isabella, can I ask you, how do you think this shift might impact the global climate efforts, especially if, as Yuba mentioned, the US would likely withdraw from the Paris Agreement and could possibly encourage other countries to do the same? So are there strategies that you would suggest to maintain momentum in climate action?
Okay, thank you very much. I think that we need to preserve Paris Agreement. And for this, I think it will be very important that we can have a coalition, okay, from the G20, G7, probably BRICS Plus, other countries that will come to preserve or to protect Paris Agreement. United States, even consider United States and Mr. President Trump position, we cannot forget that we have a different context today in the United States. Because of IRA, you have the subnational players, the pressure from the society, private sector engagement, consider renewable energy investments, etc., etc. The context is different than in the past. Of course, that the political position of the President Trump is to be out of the game. But we need to stop, as we mentioned, any movement to other countries to like to drop off Paris Agreement. But on the other side, we need a new political will if we want to come to climate negotiations. We cannot move the pieces only consider the UNFCCC or the multilateral system. We need to understand that the game today is also being played outside UNFCCC. This is a reality. Climate change is part of the global climate politics and geopolitical games. And we need to come with innovative ways to frame things, because we are not discussing anymore the future. Climate change is happening. Okay, this is different. The first COP that will happen after 1.5 Celsius degrees that was achieved. And this is really a new political reality, not only climate reality. It's a new context, and I'm not sure if Baku will come with all the outcomes that we need, but we need to be sure that we have the process preserved. It's not only Baku. Let's remember that we have the Troika from Dubai to Belém. So these 3 years are absolutely critical for the multilateral game, but also for climate politics around the world.
Thank you. You mentioned the need to gather different streams of discussion to preserve climate policy, and of course one of it is the articulation of development and climate action is a part of climate action. So how can country, particularly in developing countries, do both climate action and pressing development need? I think you've been working on energy for the last years, and energy is key here. There are 600 million people in Africa that lack access to electricity. This accounts for 80% of the global population without electricity. And energy is absolutely fundamental for development, for economic growth, for education, for healthcare. So how to harness the vast energy potential that Africa has to sustainably to foster these dynamics?
I think that in that context, we need to understand that fundamentally, since the start, the African country, developing countries have tried to articulate their approach on climate issues as a development first aspect, first of all, because its development is a problem for climate. Climate at the same time is jeopardizing any perspective for development. In that context, energy is is fundamental. Without energy, you cannot expect any kind of development. It's almost impossible to disconnect climate issues with development issue. It's impossible to disconnect also energy issue in the climate, because Africa is in a very dilemma situation. You will find many countries, they have discovered oil and gas. At the same time, and then they are fighting for their development, and then the poverty is escalating. And then can you refrain those countries to exploit their resources for development? And then if they do not have any access to finance in order to be able to go for a cleaner energy systems. And then the problem is that the initial cost for any renewable energy is very high, and then most of the countries do not have the means to do that. This is one element. Second is that most of the investment of the country, in the region on energy issues is for export. We have seen when the Ukraine and Russia happened, many Europeans went to see in Africa how to look at the natural gas. That is for exporting outside the continent, not importing. And then those are some of the fundamental issues, the problem. And then the energy issues should be a central part of development agenda and then the first of all, and then how you make your development more sustainable, and then you bring in a much more cleaner energy, and then how you make it compatible with climate. And this is a natural approach of the problem rather than bringing the issue, the perspective of the agenda of the neutral country. And that related to mitigation, it related to also the energy security. And this is exactly what is happening, what we are seeing in the continent. Unless we completely revisit that approach, nothing will happen, and then hardly we can mobilize those countries. And there is no possibility without a strong mobilization of developing countries, the global South, and then to deal adequately with the climate issues.
That's a key topic. You know that last year President Macron convened this summit for a new financing pact that resulted in the Paris Pact for People on Planet. That is exactly on this balance. That's the need to push at the same time development and climate issue, that one will not happen without another, and we have to find ways to prioritize both because they are so interlinked, as you say, and that country must never be put in a position to choose between one or the other. That will result in neither one or the other. Isabella, on this, so you, as a former Minister of Environment and a key figure in shaping the climate policy of Brazil, you've been confronted to this dilemma and to this question. How do you react to that?
Okay, I'm former Minister for Environment in Brazil, a country that is a solution provider. Let's review things. Which country in the world could provide solutions to energy security and energy transition in the next 5 years? Tell me which ones. Okay, and this is a really good point, because as was explained before, when you have the climate regime, the convention 992 in Rio de Janeiro, this was convened by the G7, based on energy security and climate issues. For developing countries, emerging economies, this we joined it because of growth and development, sustainable development, and poverty eradication. In the last 30 years, we're trying to come together. It is a really complex situation because we need to understand, people must understand that this means economic growth, social development. This means why developing worlds or emerging economies are looking for to address climate change together with development or sustainable development. And the resistance for developed world is also true because the developed countries don't want to pay for this. Okay, so let's move the pieces. Let's go to the fossil fuels transitional way, and which countries will be able to cut and to mitigate based on renewable. What's happening in the United States is absolutely clear. Okay, the United States is have energy emissions based on coal. They're cutting this for shale gas and shale oil, and this is fossil fuels. And the guys are coming and say we are the most important country today to mitigate climate change. Come on, this is based on fossil fuels. And the other side is absolutely true. They're asking for to block innovative innovations in technologies because this comes from the non-Western countries. And this is the cost again. How the developed countries are able to pay for the things. I'm not only discuss costs, I'm discussing about prices. If you ask me to have traceability and food security in developing world or food producers country, are you able to pay for this? No. No. So this means green protectionism. Again, we are adding crisis. We are not adding solutions. So this is the problem that you have today in the world. If you want to manage, you want to face the real problem that you have today, you have climate change happening today. We're adding problems because we have the traditional way to manage politics, and also plus adaptation resilience because the costs are so high. So it's true that to come together, in my opinion, we need to come into climate security and also how we'll be able to promote less vulnerable societies in the future. And for this, we need to access funds. And it's impossible to access funds and finance without managing the international institution, financial institution, without review this, without coming innovative ways for multilateral cooperation. And you have the geopolitical game outside. You're discussing climate change in other rooms with another adults. And the reality is this, if you come to solutions today, the new generations must have to manage this based on the next 40 years. And the next 40 years will be exposed to the emissions that we had in the past. Okay, this is how disruptive how climate change game is. And this is coming together with nature crisis. Not only biodiversity loss, but the scarcity of natural resource. To have this mobile phone here, I need 14 critical minerals. 14, okay, to have this one. And you cannot survive without this. Decarbonization is so intensive in energy, and we're still discussing fossil fuels or climate transition or energy security based on fossil fuels. So let's assume that we are not able to solve the problems in the past and also in the present, and let's discuss how we could reframe things or not. Okay, if not, we have to tax fossil fuels, and I agree that to have other countries that are coming with fossil fuels, with light carbon fossil oil, for example. And why I have to explore with the old oil in the past that come from the past. So the debate is so complex today, absolutely complex, more than it was 10 years ago when we have Paris Agreement. So for me, in a pragmatic way, we need to find countries that really would like to come together as solution providers. You're not able to do this, okay, forget it. You have the tensions, and let's pay for resilience, for the cost of adaptation, etc., and the cost of inaction. That's what's happening today. I'm sorry, but it's true.
You stress that solve this problem will require to reframe, as you said, significant discussion on a range of topics, on development, energy, climate, trade, technology, finance.
Yeah, the comment. Have something really important when you're going to climate security. It's not only, it's about also defense, about how countries be exposed. In my country, that we have a frontier with your country because of French Guiana, you have organized crime, absolutely responsible for deforestation, or illegal deforestation. So we need to understand that we have a formal game and a legal game behind the scenes. It's not informal, it's illegalities. How would you like to frame things? Climate change is part of this, okay? And we need to understand how climate politics, how we need to debate based on climate politics. It's not only climate policy. And this is a new understanding how we should frame the world, consider the threats that we have. It's the same in Africa when you go illegal mining, for example. It's the same. So people are vulnerable. We need to understand this and how climate change is exposing us to these vulnerabilities.
But so, sorry, Yuba, you wanted to react?
I think that the problems are interrelated. There is no way you can detach the climate issues to the bigger picture, and we need an holistic approach of things, and then to have much more clarity. You know, it is not a problem of mitigation or adaptation. We need to mitigate and adapt at the same time, but more importantly, in certain parts of the world, to avoid emissions. Because we never bring on the equation. We look at mitigation, we look at adaptation, we never bring at the equation avoiding emissions, because you cannot develop without energy. And then you need to have energy for development. This is critical, fundamental. You have two choices: to go for low carbon or the fossil fuel. Those are the options. Actually, because of the funding mechanism, because of the financial architecture, the country have limited choice than going through the fossil fuel base rather than low carbon or zero carbon options. And then those are some of the fundamental elements we need to consider.
For last topic, a round of question, I would like you to try to reflect on where and with whom this topic could progress in the next years, right? In the next days first, because the COP29 is happening now, but with a longer term. So, Isabella, you've been involved in numerous COPs. I think you're advising the COP21, the 2029 now. The Brazilian G20 is happening right after, and Brazil will hold the COP30 after that. So how can this arc of important events could bring forward the different threads of this conversation? And with whom? You mentioned the need to that countries should come together. Yes, countries should come together, but How do we organize that? Who should we be targeting first?
I think that you should figure out better what's happening today. You don't have the global leaders dedicated to climate change that you used to have in the past. Go check what's happened the last General Assembly in the United States last September, okay, in New York, and you don't have all the leaders in the world mentioning climate change. This is the first point. Okay, the second point, as I mentioned before, we're exposed to climate change. It's not an issue that will happen in the future. I absolutely agree you need to cut emissions, but the impact of this cutting, okay, will happen only in the next 40 years. So we need to understand that to be exposed to climate change because of our failure in the past. It's true. The science was able to say we need to have a global agreement because this is a global issue. We had the climate regime, but we failed in KP, Kyoto Protocol, we failed in KP2, we failed in Copenhagen, we failed in Cancun, and finally we have Paris Agreement. That have problems, but we need to implement this. Third point, COPs are not enough to address the solution. We need to come with all of the countries together. Not only countries, but also societies and private sector. And for these, we need to understand how to have the guys into the room. What you have today is private sector keeping distance of NDCs, for example, net zero. We check what's happened in the last 2 or 3 years. It's true. Okay, the guys say, what is this? So we need to be pragmatic enough to understand that you have a problem, but you don't have all the solutions together, all the players together, figure out the solutions because this is part of the geopolitical game today. We have the wars, we have the contradictions in the short-term perspective. Look what's happening in Ukraine. Look what's happening in Gaza. Okay, we are adding crises because we have additional emissions so disruptive in such a way, and also the costs of the wars that could come, the money could come to support poorest people in the world. No. So my feeling is that last year, Dubai, this year, Baku, and also Belém, this is the troika. How the countries will come to say that, okay, we are looking forward to address this crisis with these new elements, new alliance, probably an alliance, okay, to block things and to avoid the disruptive process, but also the political alliance, okay, to convince people that we are absolutely committed to go into climate change, to tackle climate change, and that's why G20 decision is so important. This year, Brazil is coming with good outcomes from climate finance together with finance track in G20. Next year, South Africa will chair G20. Cannot forget it. Brazil also will chair BRICS Plus next year together with COP30. I do hope that we can figure out how emerging economies and bilateral and trilateral cooperation should come, okay, to provide really new tracks to move the pieces faster than we are doing today. We cannot have only the position to come into COPs. We need to spread the dynamics, and that's the dynamics of climate negotiation, and also to manage better the contradictions. You have short-term trade-offs. It's important to observe this. If you have to manage better the trade-offs, it's important that these funds that will emerge from this, for example, oil transition, will come to social networking protection, for example. How we can increase the social protection in developing countries. And for this, we have an open-mind debate. We need other guys into the room. We need other agendas. If not, we will only discuss the business as usual. And unfortunately, as we learn, we are not able to manage this, consider the urgence of climate change, because this is happening. It's not something that we're designing that to happen in the future. And even IPCC is very clear that 1.5 is there. So disruptive. And what is happening today in my feeling sometimes, even in my country, we are still discussing things based on the past. And we need to bring the future to the present. We need to tell new stories. We need to have new mistakes. Please bring new mistakes, okay? Because I'm so tired to try to convince people that we need to accelerate things. And unfortunately, you have the contradictions into the room. And we need to invite the new generation to be part of this. Don't wait for them. They need to come and take decisions together with us.
Yuba, based on your experience with the IPCC, what successful approach can you think of? What mistake can we learn from, as Isabella stressed, and what general advice would you give to negotiators today?
I think that I fully agree with what Isabella indicated. but there is, in my view, 4 critical prerequisites if we want to find a way out. The first one, as she indicated, is the leadership. Without a system leadership, there's no way we can go anywhere, but with a clear vision of where we want to go. After the leadership, and then we need to have a new type of institutional architecture, because current institution will not lead us anywhere. It will only be a talk show, because the 2 parties, South and North, are talking but not hearing each other. And this is theoretical, the institutional architecture will not allow us to go anywhere. And then the third element is related to, we need resources, different kind of resources, because it's not only financial resources, institutions through which we are operating, financial resources, human resources, and then a new type of negotiation and so on and so forth. And this is critical. And then the fourth element is the most important and most difficult one. How we deal with the immediate issues, such as poverty alleviation, such as food, nutrition, shelter, peace, and then stopping war. At the same time, you invest in a longer-term perspective, and that is the climate mitigation. Unless we are able to bring those different elements together, there is no way we can make any progress. It will be the problem. The more we wait to solve a problem, the more difficult it will be and then to solve it. And then we are attacking the symptom of the problem, not the root causes of the problem. One of the key elements of science is migration. If you come to Europe, they will say migration. By migration, only a symptom, a wider problem. And we are not attacking those wider problems. We just look at the symptom, and then that's an issue we will not be able at all to solve. So leadership critical, new type of institution is fundamental, resources is crucial, and linking immediate issues, immediate need, and a long-term perspective is unavoidable.
Thank you very much. We are running out of time. It's clear from this discussion that developing countries are now central to global dynamics, and stronger alignment of nation, North and South, in managing the international order and the climate architecture and policy the next year will be paramount for success. I would like to sincerely thank our speakers, Yuba Sokona and Isabella Teixeira, for sharing their insight and perspective today. And I hope it will inspire continued collaboration and a new leadership, as you said, Yuba, to drive equitable progress in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.